Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, 3.36. Arjuna Vacha. Atakkena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anicchanapi vachneya paladivanyoditaha. Arjuna said, "O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force?" So many times we engage in activities which we then feel repentant about.
So, please, not sharing.
Which we feel repentant about, saying, "Why did I do?" So Arjuna is asking, saying, sometimes why do we engage in such acts? Why are we forced? As if somebody is pushing us to do. Even though we are unwilling to do it, why do we engage in such activities? Purport. A living entity as part and parcel of the Supreme is originally spiritual, pure, and free from material contaminations. And this we have heard multiple times, but we don't really understand it. So as a living entity, as a soul, being part and parcel of Krishna, we are spiritual, we are pure, and free from material contaminations. We are not affected by these material contaminations. Even now, even whether we are in conditioned state or liberated state, whether we are in material world or spiritual world, we are not contaminated. Even the soul, even now, the soul is not contaminated. But we still engage in activities of material world, almost thinking like we belong to this place. Like we don't really think or remember that we are foreign. We think that we are very much part of this material world, and this whole material world is there for our enjoyment. That is material contamination. But actually, Atma is free from it originally. Therefore, by nature, he is not subject to the sins of the material world, like I was saying. So it's nature. Nature is pure. So he's actually not subject to the sins. But when he's in contact with material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation, and sometimes even against his will. As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine as to the perverted nature of the living entity. So this is perverted. Actually, this is not our real nature. This is because we are in touch with material world, material nature. Our actual original pure nature has become perverted. So now we associate with the material world, we engage in activities which should not be done, etc. Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful actions are not, however, impelled by the super soul within. Or somebody might say, okay, since Paramatma is the Anuvanta Upadrushta, so he is the one causing me to do sinful actions. And some people say, okay, Bhagavan, by direction of the Lord, I am doing this. But no, it's not because of Paramatma. It is because of something else. But due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse. 3.37. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kamesha Krodesha Rajoguna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyenam Hi Vairinam. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So this lust, it is born of contact with the material mode of passion. So it is born of material mode and material mode of passion, and it is later transformed into wrath. And this is the all-devouring sinful enemy, all-devouring. It destroys everything. So it is not the Paramatma. Krishna is saying, no, it's not Paramatma. It is lust. What is lust? Lust is sense gratification, desire to fulfill our own desires. Our engaging in activities to fulfill our own desires is born out of contact with material mode of passion. Purport. When a living entity comes in contact with a material creation, so this is the key thing, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust. So when as jivas, when as souls, we came in contact with material creation, because we wanted to come into material creation as we didn't want to serve Krishna, we wanted to be away from Krishna, we wanted to enjoy independent of Krishna. That now that if that eternal love for Krishna is as it is, then we can't engage in that desire. We can't try to fulfill that desire because the love for Krishna will become an impediment. It will prevent our enjoyment. So as part of the creation, Lord transforms this love into lust. So because the eternal love for Krishna is so powerful, the lust is also extremely powerful. Uh, so association with the mode of passion. But the main point is because it is love for Krishna which is transformed, it is not ordinary. It is not an ordinary energy. So when it gets converted to lust and we become attracted to material objects, it is so strong that it is extremely difficult to overcome. Or in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Wrath is transformed into illusion means actually when one becomes angry, he forgets himself, really completely forgets himself, falls into the mode of ignorance. Ignorance means illusion. And then the material existence continues. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity. So, this is with us only. Krishna subsequently says where this lust is situated. So, it is that greatest enemy is in us. And it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. So, this is what causes us to continue here. So, wrath is manifestation of mode of ignorance. So, lust is mode of passion. It gets transformed into wrath, which is mode of ignorance. So these modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into mode of ignorance, is elevated to mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be free from the degradation of wrath. So most important thing here is prescribed method of living and acting. That is why Shastra, there is rules and regulations, do's and don'ts, right? When we follow this, then even though the mode of passion is there, it will not get degraded because it is under the control of some rules. So it will be prevented and instant we will engage in other activities which will be guided by mode of goodness. So then, we are benefited. But when this lust is uncontrolled, unguided, it goes naturally falls down into ignorance and creates material attachment, material bondage. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever increasing spiritual bliss. And the living entities are part and parcel of the spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence. But by the misuse of their independence, when the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. So this is very important actually to understand this. So we all have partial independence, but we are by the misuse of this independence, what happens when the service attitude, see this in the whole spiritual world, everybody's attitude is service attitude. Just now I was reading Chaitanya Charitamrita where, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is saying that starting from Balaram, everybody whether in Vaikuntha or in Goloka, everybody has service attitude. Everybody wants to serve Krishna. Now this service attitude, again, service attitude, love of Krishna, it is transformed into this lust, which is propensity for sense enjoyment. Right? So instead of serving some Krishna, we want somebody else to serve us. Then we become caught in lust, because this is lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities. Otherwise, we didn't have to fall from the spiritual world. Right? So we came here to fulfill these lustful propensities. So the Lord created this material world. So the material world is very conducive. It is designed for the conditioned souls to fulfill their restful propensities. So it looks very natural. That is why when we preach to people and say, no, don't do sense gratification, it looks very odd to them. It seems like, oh, but this is what we are created for, or this is natural for us. Because this material creation, this world is a facility for this fulfilling these lustful propensities. So trying to fulfill these lustful propensities seems very natural for us in the conditioned state. When completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. Baffled means that we are not getting what we want. We are just, we are trying and trying and trying, and we are failing. Prolonged lustful activities for many years. This is karma, basically. One who engages in karma, vikarma or karma, and over a long period is not satisfied. Then they begin to inquire, saying, oh, this is also not helping. So many lifetimes of engaging in vikarma or karma for sense gratification is not helping, not giving me satisfaction. What is my real position? So then one becomes a gnani. And then from gnana, slowly, after many Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha, after many lifetimes, a gnani will come to the platform of saying, oh, Vasudeva is everything. This inquiry is the beginning of the Vedanta Sutras, wherein it is said, Athato Brahma Jignasa. One should inquire into the Supreme. And the Supreme is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam as Janmadhya Seto Anvayadi Taratascha, or the origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of lust is also in the Supreme. If therefore lust is transformed into love of Krishna, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. So these qualities are existing in the Supreme, but they are perverted in us. So when they're transformed towards the Lord, then they become spiritualized. Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Rama, exhibited his wrath by burning the golden city of Ravana. But by doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they're employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies. So if somebody is in the grips of this lust and wrath, when we engage in Krishna consciousness, we should slowly, actually by the process of Krishna consciousness only, it becomes purified. We become purified of these propensities so that we stop using them for our sense gratification. But because those propensities were naturally there in us, when required, it can be invoked for the pleasure of the Lord. It's not that we keep this lust and wrath active all the time, saying, okay, let me use it. Or we'll get purified of this lustful propensities. But when it is required, because who will have this lust and wrath, who are naturally not brahmanas, right? Those in the mode of passion and ignorance mostly, right? So kshatriyas, vaishyas, shudras. So if required kshatriya, he can, his lust and wrath are under his control. A devotee who is a kshatriya. But when it is required for dharma samstapana like Arjuna, he will invoke it. Right? He will use it. So it's okay. It's okay because these are required. These qualities are required. But they have to be used in the service of the Lord. So it's very important to understand how this is so foreign to us. Right? And the striking thing here is love for Krishna is transformed into lust. So it's extremely difficult to overcome it. Right? So only love for Krishna can again reconvert lust back into love for Krishna. As in, there's no other trigger that can help us out of this. It's very powerful. Any thoughts on this? Anybody has any questions? Because this is very important to understand how this lust is our most sinful enemy. But it is also difficult to overcome enemy because it is eternal love for Krishna which is transformed. Now, why it is transformed? Because we wanted to enjoy independent of Krishna, so it had to be. Otherwise, love would have become a barrier in our attempt to enjoy. So that has been converted to lust, and it is so powerful that it is actually living entities are trying to engage in sense gratification with this lust. Okay.
Praj, in the first para, like it's mentioned, lust is transformed to wrath and wrath into illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, illusion, because of illusion only one will fall victim to lust.
No, lust is mode of passion. Lust by definition is mode of passion. Of course, I mean the whole thing is in material world itself is ignorance. But in material world, there is still goodness, passion, ignorance. Lust arises from passion.
Hmm.
Like, see, for somebody who's in the mode of goodness, passion doesn't arise. Lust doesn't arise.
Hmm.
So the trigger for lust is mode of passion. Because mode of ignorance also people are like fully who are in the mode of ignorance. They don't understand all this. They are like simply drunk and like, I mean, they can't relate to their environment. Right. But those who have mode of passion, for them, lust, propensity to do something, to enjoy ourselves, this is all requires mode of passion. Otherwise, it can't happen. See, mode of ignorance, we should understand the qualities. Mode of ignorance is not so much about trying to do anything. Mode of ignorance is just sleep, indolence, laziness. There is no activity really, as in it's just, yeah, it is just ignorance, like, darkness. That's it. But lust requires activity, fulfill
Yes.
lust. That's why Krishna is saying it is born in contact with mode of passion.
Okay. Regarding this illusion, like
Yeah.
wrath is transformed to illusion.
Yeah, wrath is transformed to illusion because when somebody becomes angry, I keep having this experience all the time. When I become angry, then I just forget what I am. So whenever we become angry, we just forget everything. Jayato vishan pumsan sangasteshu vijayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodho vijayate kamat bhavati samoha samoha smriti vibhramaha smriti vamshat buddhinashat pranashati. So samoha, that illusion, we enter into illusion. So we forget everything. We just forget. We are just caught up in that anger. And the anger just makes us fall down. This whole thing is that process of dhyato vishan pumsan. Lust to falling into the material existence.
Okay. And in the last paragraph, like it's mentioned, origin of lust is in the Supreme.
Yeah, everything is in the Supreme. But it is perverted here, that's all. In Supreme, in the spiritual world, the same lust is called prema. In material world, it's called kama.
Okay.
All qualities are in their pure state in the spiritual world, and they are in their perverted state in the material world. The origin is the Supreme Lord. Okay, so lust basically arises by the way we use our free will. Yes, by the way we use our free will. So, okay, two things are there for lust. One is our nature itself. So, if you are born in mode of passion, then it's very easy for us to be caught up in lust. Somebody in mode of goodness is not so easily caught up in lust. That's number one. Number two, yes, when we have the opportunity, even if we are in the mode. So, see, those who are conditioned, they don't understand all this free will and all that, right? So, when we come to devotional service, we understand all this. So, even if you are in the mode of passion, because we are engaging in devotional service, we say, okay, let me not use my free will to engage myself in fulfilling my lust. Let me use it. Let me instead try to please Krishna. Hmm? So if the free will is not, if the free will is not to please Krishna or to engage in bhakti, then does it lead to lust? What does that mean? No, lust is there. Lust exists in us. Like I said, if you're in mode of passion, we exhibit lust. We have to now convert this lust to love. So which means that when we engage in service of Krishna, lust is prevented, in the sense lust is not allowed to flourish. So it's not that okay, see, root cause of our misuse of free will not to please Krishna, the root cause, that is the reason why we came into this material world, right? We misused our free will and we said, I don't want to serve Krishna. We did this in the spiritual world. So then that was the reason why we fell into this material world. Now, in our current bodies, whatever we are acquired, each individual entity is in the control of a particular mode, right? And those who are elevated come to the mode of goodness, they are protected from this lust. Those who are in the mode of passion are attacked by this lust. So the original reason is misuse of free will, but the immediate reason is the mode of passion. And by engaging in devotional service, when we try to serve Krishna, then this lust is controlled, converted, etc., transformed, etc. Is that okay? Yeah, it's very easy. It's very easy. It's mode of goodness. That is why if okay, question is it easy to control this lust when we are in the mode of goodness? Yes, it is. And that is why first thing for devotees, actually we have to transcend. We have to move from ignorance to passion, passion to goodness, and then only then to Shuddha Sattva, pure goodness. So we have to live our life in mode of goodness. That is the whole idea. Because when one is in the mode of goodness, goodness means all their activities are enlightened by knowledge. Knowledge that I'm not this body, I'm spirit soul, that I'm not here to enjoy, that Supreme Lord is the enjoyer. All this knowledge enables us to not engage in these activities. But of course, because we are not reached pure state, some here and there passion and ignorance keeps troubling us. And when constantly we are engaged in devotional service, passion and ignorance go off. When we cross anartha nivritti and other higher stages, and then we will be established in goodness. Of course, some anarthas will be there till bhava. We will not enter Shuddha Sattva. Then at that stage we enter Shuddha Sattva, and then we achieve prema and other things. Yeah, so mode of goodness is absolutely important. Mode of goodness, uh, everything that is sinful of this in this material world can be avoided, gets avoided rather, because that is the nature of that mode. Okay. Okay. 3.38. Okay, let me just cover this one more because the others require more discussion. Okay, 3.38. Dhumena vriyate vahnyaryatha darsho malena cha yatholbena vruto garbhas tatha tenedam avrutam. The fire is covered by smoke, as mirror is covered by dust, or as embryo is covered by womb. The living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. So based on the different type of body that we have acquired, we will experience different levels or levels of lust, degrees of lust. Sorry. So there are 3 degrees of covering the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. This covering is but lust under different manifestations, like smoke in fire, dust on the mirror, and womb about the embryo. When the lust is compared to smoke, it is understood that the fire of the living spark can be little perceived. So this is the least amount of lust in this compared to smoke, because living spark can be little perceived. In other words, when the living entity exhibits his Krishna consciousness slightly, he may be likened to the fire covered by smoke. So this is the best state before Shuddha Sattva. Because there is some sense of I am not this body, I am spirit soul. All the fire is necessary when there is smoke. There is no manifestation of fire in the early stage. This stage is like the beginning of Krishna consciousness. And the dust of the mirror refers to cleansing process of the mirror of the mind by so many spiritual methods. The best process is to chant the holy name of the Lord. The embryo covered by womb is an analogy illustrating a helpless position. So this dust of the mirror refers to like people who come into process of Krishna consciousness. Or Chetodarpana Marjanam. Right? When Chetodarpana Marjanam happens, then even though we are covered by passion and ignorance, but still we might engage in activities that we should not, but we then realize, repent, and slowly we move ahead. Lust keeps reducing and reducing and reducing. And the worst is the embryo covered by the womb. The most helpless situation. Child in the womb is so helpless that he cannot even move. This stage of living condition can be compared to that of trees. The trees are also living entities, but they've been put in such a condition of life by such a great exhibition of lust that they're almost void of consciousness. So we know this. Nalakuvara and Manikriva, they were given the bodies of tree because they exhibited lust. The covered mirror is compared to the birds and beasts, smoke covered to the human being. So different levels: animals, trees, then animals, then human being. In the form of human being, the living being may revive a little Krishna consciousness, and if he makes further a development, the fire of spiritual life can be kindled in the human form of life. By careful handling of the smoke in the fire can be made to blaze. Therefore, the human form of life is a chance for the living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence. In human form of life, one can conquer the enemy lust by cultivation of Krishna consciousness under able guidance. So we should surrender to spiritual master, and under his guidance we should conquer this enemy lust. Okay. Any questions?
Probably here actually explained humans will have like very less lust, right?
Comparatively.
Comparatively, we feel it's huge, but
Yeah. Actually, good point, right? So the lust that we have compared to the whole existence. So then we can understand saying that, if you don't live a responsible life in this human form of life, then if we fall down to birds, beasts, and trees and plants, etc., how much we will be like, we're completely covered, right? So and in the lower stages, actually, we don't even realize. We can't even realize. It's so much of covering that we can't even actually realize that we are in lust. Lust basically means trying to enjoy independent of Krishna. Like in lower living beings, they can't even understand that they are trying to do something wrong. Right? It's so thick, the covering of lust. So human being, that is why human life is extremely conducive. Even demigods want to take a human birth, because it gives us the best opportunity to actually perfect our life and go back to Krishna. Okay. Anything else? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Vancha kalpatarupishcha kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Samaveta gaura bhakta vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.